Hello! You want to know what I read during my last 2 months? Not just one, two, bonus! Because I didn't do one last month. Let's find out. Hello, I'm Pete, and this is the Ponderings of Pete, because I had to put my name in there somehow. Anyways, throughout March and April, I read a total of 11 books. Not too many, not too many. I know a lot of people that read 11 books monthly, but this is Booktube, so we have a lot of different paces here. Some people read 22 books in a month, and I'm just like, I don't have that time. Wow. Okay. So I'm just going to split them off into sections and talk about like groups of books, kind of, because there's some ongoing series, there's some that all kind of fit into one section, but let's talk about Malazan. No surprise, I read one Malazan book in the last 2 months. I meant to read Reaper's Gale back in April, but that didn't happen. So I just read Bone Hunters in March, and this is my favorite one so far. Oh my gosh, there's so many great scenes in this book. There's so many epic things that I can't talk about because it's book 6. The last part of the book, through the city, I'm trying to think about what else I could say. Like, the characters that are portrayed in here are some of my favorites, with Kalam, Paran. Well done, Mr. Erickson. I'm looking forward to finishing the entire series. Hopefully I can talk about it on a video soon. Next up, let's talk about some Red Rising. So, as part of Library of Alexandria's Feb Rising, I'm reading along with that. I read Golden Sun and Morningstar in March and April, respectively. I don't actually know if this is in frame or not. I'm going to assume it is. So both of these are very bingeable books. I read Morningstar in about 2 days, and I think Golden Sun took 2 or 3 days as well. Because I was coming down to the line, I was just like, let's power through them. But they are books you can eat up like a lawnmower on a Sunday in the suburbs. Well, you're not eating the lawnmower. They're like a lawnmower eats grass. They're great. Very fast paced. Both of them are a step up from Red Rising, in my opinion. His writing gets better. There are some questionable plot choices that he makes he does it at least once in both of these books, and we talked about them during, I think, both live shows that Alan did. We talked about these specific like twists that he pulls, but needless to say, they're still good books, I think, and this is one of my favorite sci-fi series, so check these out. Very fast paced. I can't talk about them much because they're 2 and 3. Comes to a really satisfying ending. I think the way that they talk about the rebellion is very different, especially in Morningstar, because I will say that most rebellions in like YA novels or whatever, it's very, let's overthrow, and they don't talk about much what happens afterwards and what happens after you overthrow the rebellion. And that's the question that is explored a little bit in Morningstar in its own way. I'm not going to say how, but it is explored, and the question is brought forth, and it is great what he does with it. Read these books. They're fast-paced, but they're really deep if you really think about them, in my opinion. Gotta emphasize that this is in my opinion. Of course, all of this is my opinion, really. So, go read these. Next up, we have another not so much of a surprise. We have Babylon's Ashes and Persepolis Rising by James S.A. Corey. What a surprise. I'm reading 2 Expanse books in 2 months. These I actually have been consistent about. I really like these. These are books 6 and 7. I'm continuing on with the series, obviously. So, again, this is all about humanity and how humanity is going to react to new and different situations. So, check these out. I'm going to do a series review. I'm going to do individual book reviews as well in the future, hopefully. Now, on to my self-published books that I read. The first one was the March pick for the shelf published in Buddy Reed, and this was Nightmare. This is a horror novel. I don't typically read horror novels. In fact, this is probably the first actual horror novel I've ever read. It was okay. And this is coming from somebody who's not a fan of the horror genre. Horror is not my thing. So take this with a grain of salt. I think the story was interesting, and the way it developed, it was an interesting look at some mental health stuff that was, I can't tell you what it was without spoiling the book, but I think the writing was good. I think it accomplished its goal of being a suspenseful horror novel of, hi, we're going to scare you and keep you on the edge of your seat, which it did. That's really all I can say about this without kind of either spoiling it or just saying something that probably isn't true to other horror novel readers. I don't know. I'm not a horror novel reader. This was fine. Next up was the April read for the shelf published in, and that was Winds of Strife by U.G. Gutman. I've been waiting to read this for a while. I've had it on my shelf for a while, but we were doing it as a buddy read, so I decided to do it now. And it was really fun. If you like Sanderson, you're probably going to like this. This is Yuri's debut novel, and I thought it was really good for a debut novel. The magic system is really in-depth and consistent, much like a Sanderson magic system. And there are other traces of Sanderson that I could detect in his writing that came out. So yeah, this is a book with an unlikable protagonist, FYI. It's very morally gray. I will say it is darker than a lot of everything that Sanderson does. So caution on that. There's some manipulation going on that not everybody was a big fan of, because it just it's part of the story and it makes sense. It just, everybody's kind of like, but this was really good. I am excited to read the next one when it comes out. The last book that I read that was self-published in the last 2 months is also the first YA book that I've read in a while, and that is Awakens by Elisa Kova. So I stopped reading YA a while back, and there were a few books that were kind of the reasons why I stopped reading YA, because I just got tired of it, because it was all and I'll be completely honest, this book is kind of tropey, but I really liked it. And I kind of came to I kind of understood why I kind of like some YA books. Kind of rediscovered that understanding. There are tropes, but it's not like overdone in a really bad way. Like, you don't have men in dark, brooding men in dark clothing and dark personalities just leaning against the dark doorway. It's not like that. There are tropes it hits, but it doesn't push them in your face constantly. Definitely check this out. I really like the magic system and the history behind the world. And there's, I think, 4 or 5 other in this series that I'm interested in reading that I probably will pick up at some point. So check this out. We buddy read this as a kind of like an unofficial buddy read on the Shelf Space Discord. So if you want to read more self-published, check the link out to the Discord in the below. Yeah. The next book is my second YA book I read in the past 2 months. And that is the book Firekeepers Daughter by Angeline Booley. I'm not entirely sure. I really liked this one. So I think Charmaine and Lyra, we were talking, and they were talking about how they're reading. It's a Native American Nancy Drew, which immediately piqued my interest because, when I was a young kid, I read both Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, and I read all of them because I was that kid. I really liked those growing up. I don't know if you could tell. So I was immediately hooked, and this is such a well-written book. You have a nice little glimpse into Native American culture, or one specific tribe's Native American culture, which is fascinating because looking into different cultures is fascinating. It takes place on a Indian reservation up on the border of the US and Canada. And it's kind of deals with one of the issues that sometimes plagues these reservations, which is, the drug trade. Native American Nancy Drew, drug trade, what's happening? Check it out. This is really good. Highly recommend this. The final book I'm going to talk about is another, if I gave stars, this would not be another 5-star read, I guess. I've heard mixed things about this book. Some people on back like months and months ago, Shelf Space read this and they were like split sides. Some people loved it, some people hated it. I loved it personally. Rage of Dragons. Unlikable protagonist? Absolutely. Do his actions make sense? Yes, if you forget logic. Yeah, they do actually. This was such a good book. I think about it, looking back and like my feelings started to grow better every time I think about it. I did film a review that I want to put up after I edit it. So probably sometime in the next few weeks, check that out. I really liked it. I'm excited to read the next one eventually. It's really good. It's a really good look at just creating a fantasy world around oppression and kind of specific people groups being oppressed. And it was so interesting to see that in a fantasy world because I don't feel like many people write from this specific perspective enough or often per se. And I think Evan Winter did a great job at it. That's all the books I read. Actually, no, there's one more that I forgot because I've packed it away. The final book that I read was part of Andy Smith's A Year of Short Classics, and I read Northanger Abbey. I read Emma ages ago, and I was like, okay, I liked Emma. I picked this up because I want to read more Jane Austen, and I liked it. The main character is a reader, and some of the, oh, what if this happened, type of stereotypes that some readers are like, yeah, that's her, to a certain extent. This is a shorter book. I believe it was published posthumously. Could be wrong. But it is a shorter book, and I really did enjoy it. I'm going to read more Jane Austen in the future, and especially reading a book about a reader. It's kind of meta on some level, and there was definitely one character in there that just irritated the heck out of me because he was just like, novels? Who would read those? Oh, I read one, ages ago, and I was like, ugh, if it's okay. I just wanted him to drown in mud with a pig sitting on top of him. So, and that's all. That is all the books I read this month. Yeah. So thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. What did you think about these books? If you read them. If you want to buy some of these books, definitely check out the links below. I have affiliate links to bookshop.org that I get a small commission off if you use. And even if you don't use those affiliate links, definitely check out bookshop.org. They are a nonprofit organization that started during COVID to support local bookstores. So their profits actually go to local bookstores. So they're awesome. They're trying to be a nonprofit alternative to Amazon, and they're slowly making their way up to that. So check them out. Consider buying from them instead of Amazon because Amazon is a bit oppressive on the book industry if you didn't know. Anyways, that's not going to get on that soapbox. Maybe another video. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your weather if you can. And just keep reading. Always keep reading.